Hello Rebrand gang, welcome to part 2 of the Toshiba rebrand. In today's video we're going to take a deeper look into the current Toshiba branding, and I'm also going to show you my process for sketching out ideas. Once I've got all that research and all that knowledge in my head, I'm going to start sketching out some ideas, and I'm going to show you the full process from mad, chaotic ideas right through to streamlining them a little bit into something that we can later develop in Illustrator. On the previous video, I ran a poll to decide whether we should use a new sub-brand name for Toshiba or just use the Toshiba name itself, and the poll swayed hard towards just using the name Toshiba, so that's exactly what we're going to do. So since the last video, I've been doing a lot more research into the branding of Toshiba and the background behind it. So I just wanted to show you some of the stuff that I've seen, just so you can see what I have kind of like buzzing around in my mind whilst generating the sketches that I show you later. It's very hard to show you absolutely everything I've seen because I've kind of been on news websites looking at what other people are saying about Toshiba as well as what they say about themselves, but I didn't just want to stick to their website, as sometimes you can get kind of like a swayed view because if you're only seeing what they're putting out, you can't see anybody else's opinions about the company, or maybe like their price points amongst their competitors and stuff like that. So I wanted to get a good like overarching view of how the brand is perceived by the public as well. So let's get into some of the things that I've got buzzing around in my head. So one of the first things I did was break down the name Toshiba. One of the reasons this is the first thing that I did is because the name has always felt a little bit weird to me, but I was never sure why. And then when I broke the word down into syllables, I kind of realized what was going on. So if you look up the definition of the word Tosh, T-O-S-H, which is obviously the first part of the brand Toshiba's name, it's a noun, informal, British, and it just means rubbish, nonsense. So that is not a very good start. And the other half of the name Toshiba is obviously Shiba, S-H-I-B-A. And that is actually the type of dog that appears in the Doge memes. And that type of dog is actually called a Shiba Inu. So I think it's safe to say that the idea for the logo isn't going to come from the name Toshiba. Perhaps if this was a startup, we might be inclined to start suggesting a name that rolls off the tongue a little bit easier. Because Toshiba have been around since forever, I think that changing the name of the whole company altogether would give it a really good chance of just making the company fail and killing the company off altogether. So after not really gathering any leads from the actual company name itself, I decided to start looking closely into the history of the brand. So Toshiba are a Japanese company who originate from Tokyo. And the Japanese flag uses white and red, which is probably one of the reasons that Toshiba use a red logo. The colour red is said to encourage impulse purchases and inject some urgency into the viewer or the purchaser. I believe that this colour and its meanings and implications are part of the reason that Toshiba feels slightly less premium and more like a commodity item than competitor companies' products. It's weird because a red carpet says classy and upmarket, but then when you see a red sticker on a product, it kind of says cheap and potentially nasty. So another little snippet I found on the internet was this PDF here, which is detailing Toshiba's strapline. And that strapline is leading innovation. Now, a strapline for a company, when they put it out as kind of officially as this, is kind of a big deal, as the strapline becomes a large part of the consumer-facing branding. And that kind of means that it's a high-level message that stakeholders really want to push out to the audience or the purchasers and the consumers. Whilst the PDF is really in-depth and actually goes into what you should and shouldn't do with the logo, it's not telling me much other than Toshiba want to be seen as innovators and leaders in their field. But I guess that's like all tech companies anyway. Another document I found from the homepage of their website was this company profile, and this was a much better lead because it's a much more recent and relevant document. At this point, I'm basically searching for key points which tell me what Toshiba are currently focusing on, as this will help me understand the direction that Toshiba are planning on taking, which will in turn help me create a visual identity that suits their vision and goals. So in summary, I found out from this document that Toshiba are looking at fusing physical technology with cyber technology, meaning we will enter a world where manufacturing and services evolve together. So basically they're sticking to their committed to the people, committed to the future messaging, and essentially, like a real quick summary of this is their goal is to combine creativity with technology to create a better world for their customers. So whilst I was reading through a lot of their sort of company messages, their values and their purposes and everything like that, it kind of struck me that a lot of it feels very cold and corporate. I kind of read their brand vision and it kind of just feels like another big company like showing they care. The next thing I thought to do was see how one of their competitors, who I personally perceive as a higher end brand, show their values on their website. So I chose Sony for this little part. And like when you compare their values page to Sony's value page, the Toshiba one feels like it's had much less time spent and almost like it's like they don't care as much. You will see, so let's have a look at the Sony one here, and you will see that their purpose and values page is written in a much more humanized and relatable way, and they include like this humanized and warm video to really show they care. They've kind of put the budget in, they've put the effort in to kind of make this and make you feel part of something. Whilst this may seem like a minuscule detail that most consumers will never like see, because how often do people actually go to like manufacturers' websites? I guess it's pretty rare really when you think of the entire nation. But I feel like this page is bigger than just this single page, if you know what I mean. It's more like it's a mindset, and when a company feels more humanized, like when all of the like workers in the company all working towards sort of making their brand humanized, people tend to buy more products from them, like consumers tend to buy more products from them, as basically people make emotion-led purchases every single day, even if you don't realize you're doing it. If you kind of track back many recent purchases that you've made, there's normally some sort of emotional trigger, like you connect with a brand on a better level to another company or something like that. And most people will never think about that or never really like delve into that. But when you start looking back at your life and then looking at like the decisions, like the purchase decisions you've made more recently, you start seeing like little links and stuff like that. In its simplest way, if your mum and dad used to have a stereo in their car that was, say, Sony, and they really loved it and it was like they upgraded to the Sony, there's a pretty good chance that now something in your house that you've purchased with your own money will be Sony, because you have got that long-term emotional connection to that brand and that association with quality that kind of stays with you, and especially if you saw that when you was a child and it's kind of like a really impressionable stage. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. But when I think of exactly that in my like childhood and stuff, I can't ever really remember Toshiba being there, even though they clearly were around and clearly were supplying like commodity products. So whilst I am over here talking about how the colour red might not be ideal for a technology company, what I am actually really trying to say is, of course it's not just the colour that gives off this feeling for a brand. It's no one factor alone, it's everything combined. It's everything from the font, the website, the packaging, the product design, the association with other products and other things, the wording and tone of voice that they use on their website, the photographs they use, and even things like attention to detail in things such as alignment and paragraph spacing on their website, all slightly change your perception and how you feel about the brand. So making a long story short, in this project I want to take Toshiba from feeling kind of outdated and corporate to feeling modern, fresh and humanized. So a great step towards finding out how I could do that was looking at the competitors. Now, I haven't actually based this on anything other than my own opinion, so it might not be scientifically correct, but I have chosen companies that seem to be able to command a higher price as their brand experience is better than average. So I'm just going to look at the logos now. The Sony logo is a word mark only, and it uses this slab serif font which is in all capital letters. The Samsung logo uses a corporate blue colour and a customised word mark in all caps with a stylised A. LG use a round icon with their letters LG making up a little smiley face, which is just kind of gives you that feel-good factor. So what is interesting, and I actually didn't expect, which is kind of ridiculous seeing as I see these logos very often, almost all of these logos use all capital letters, whereas I would think that that would seem shouty. However, after seeing these logos all next to each other and kind of downloading them and working with them to create this video, I'm more now inclined to say that all caps kind of symbolises strength and robustness rather than kind of shoutiness and aggression. So then now all of that is in my brain and it's kind of just buzzing around in there. It was time to put pen to paper and start letting some ideas flow out. So here is my initial crazy sketchpad of ideas that are loosely based on everything in my head at this stage. You can see that I have Toshiba's vision and values over in the left hand side just to make sure that I can realign my thoughts with their goals while sketching, as sometimes it's easy to kind of go off track or follow an avenue that little bit too far and start just going completely like off the boil. At this stage of the process, it's my subconscious doing most of the work. It's like I've loaded up my brain with the information and now I'm just kind of relaxing and letting it flow out with ideas based on that information. So I'm trying not to think too heavily into anything. I don't want to prejudge my ideas and I don't want to kind of cut off my creative flow. Like in the middle of it, just got to stay super relaxed, let the bad ideas come out, and then chances are some good ideas will come with it. In my normal videos that I've made like 53 of, and I'm sure you are aware of now if you're watching this, I'm only looking at the logo of a company, but in this series we are going to be looking a lot further than just the logo. So it's important for me to think about how the rest of the branding could develop even at this early stage. So this is what I came up with on my first shot at getting some ideas down on paper. There's a lot to work with here, but if I showed a customer this, they would probably call me an ambulance. So the next step is to clean and refine this mayhem into something slightly more palatable. As I'm actually not sending this to a customer, but I am putting this on YouTube for you, I needed to basically clean up the ideas so that I could explain them in a few word concept that's clear enough direction for you to get a good enough idea behind the concept to vote for the idea that you think we should develop in Illustrator for the next video. So yeah, don't forget at the end of this video there's going to be a little button coming up here and vote for your favourite concept, and then we will develop that in next week's vid. So this whole part of the process is still very chaotic, but it's becoming slightly less chaos as the ideas are developing. So as you can see from my next sketches here, the ideas are becoming slightly more refined. It's kind of like them diagrams you see of like the creative process, and it's like a really squirrely line that's all over the place and all tangled and overlapping on this side. It gets less and less tangled until it's just a dead straight line, and that dead straight line is our like final brand identity that we're going to build. But at the moment we're still in this messy stage, but that doesn't matter. We just got to stay strong and carry on working. So my final 5 options that I feel like we can develop into something great and really build a big brand nice identity from are as follows. Arrow, as it ties in with innovation and forward movement. It ties in with their leading innovation strapline that they've had in the past, so there's a good chance that this could realistically be used for the brand. Dots. So the dots idea is kind of like the arrow idea, but we make it out of dots, and the idea is kind of Toshiba are the front-facing dot at the front of the arrow, and everybody else is kind of following them. That's what it would symbolize. So how we stylize that, I mean, I've got the few sketches there. Perhaps we use a red dot on the right hand side of the arrow, and they're like the leaders of the pack, leading the field. Everyone else is behind. The shape of the dots will give it that forward momentum and kind of positive feeling. Wordmark alone. Now this is an interesting one, and the sketches don't do it any justice, but if you look at Sony, if you look at Samsung, if you look at Bose even, all of them use a wordmark alone, as they don't feel the need to use kind of gimmicks or features around the logo. Obviously Toshiba actually use a wordmark alone at the moment, but like I said in the first video, to me it feels a little bit industrial and a little bit kind of like hardcore for your average consumer. And originally I was thinking that was because of the capital letters, but now that I've seen the competitors, I think the font style and the combination of it's a combination of the font style and the color that's doing that. But yeah, for option 3, we would develop a wordmark alone, and we would be focusing closely on using different fonts that give that kind of prestige and premium feel that we want to portray. So the 4th option is focusing in on the letter T, and now this is something that I do on my channel a lot. I always seem to kind of default to the first letter of the company name and try and develop that into an icon that somehow relates to their industry or their service. Now just because I sometimes overuse this technique doesn't take away from the fact that sometimes it can really work. As you can see from the sketches, I've got a few different ideas here about using some kind of serif style fonts and also combining some arrow concept into the idea of using a T, like this one here where we have the like lowercase t cutting into the left hand side of an arrow. I thought that could be quite interesting and quite nice. So yeah, if you like the sound of that, then vote for option 4. And the fifth option for the poll is going to be just called power button. Had a few ideas which were basically revolving around using a circular icon, just because I think I like how that looks on the bottom of like a television or on the back of a portable hard drive or something like that. I just feel like a round icon can often look good, and a power button obviously relates it immediately to technology or electronics. And I've got a few sketches there that show different ways of incorporating either an arrow or a T shape into the actual circle or power button itself. So in the next video, whichever of these options has the most votes, I'm going to develop that further, and then I'm going to create a few different logo designs based on the sketches and based on anything else that I can think of between now and then we'll do another vote on the next video, basically choosing a final logo. And then once the Rebrand gang have chosen their favourite final logo and we've all completely agreed on that, I want to make one more video where I create a sort of brand identity guide which goes into details of how the logo can be used, the colour palette behind the logo, the imagery choices, and also some mock-ups that will show just like the brand in action. I think that will be a good way to finish off this little mini series. Press like if you like this video, press subscribe if you want to see videos like this every single week, and head straight down to the comments after you've watched this and let me know what you think of the video, what you think of the sketches, and any more ideas that you think can help flow this along, because I want to kind of make this an interactive project, and I read all the comments and I will reply to the comments, and I'm interested to hear what you have to say.